Ukrainian Cities project, and we will have a closer look also at the work in practice. And I'm very curious, I'm very pleased to have this subject on the table today. My name is Peter Bonin. I'm part of the Secretariat team that supports the platform, and I'm very pleased to guide you through the event today. Short technical note in advance. The event will be recorded. If you stay in the meeting, we assume that you agreed to the recording, and by agreeing to the recording, you also agree that the recording will be shared on the website of the German Platform for Reconstruction in Ukraine, as well as by UNECE. We have enough time for questions and comments after the inputs, but if there are any questions of understanding right after the presentations, please raise your hand or give us a sign, write them in the chat. We have, I'm very pleased to have a whole group of colleagues who are supporting us on the sidelines. After this note, we're delighted to have the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe and its partners as speakers of today's event. UNECE will provide us with some insights into the UN4Cities project, as well as the UN4Charkiw and UN4Mykolajiw initiatives, which play a pivotal role in facilitating the planning of urban reconstruction in the two cities that were significantly affected by the Russian war of aggression. The initiatives have been instrumental in kickstarting the critical work of rebuilding and revitalizing these cities, demonstrating the commitment of the international community to helping Ukraine recover and thrive in the face of adversity. I'm also particularly pleased, very particularly pleased, to welcome representatives from the two Ukrainian cities. Dmitro Falko and Olga Demyanenko will later give us an insight into the current challenges and needs of the cities from the practical side. Now, in order not to preempt our speakers any further, I'd like to hand the floor directly to Melanie Steinkemper, urban development expert at the UN4UkrainianCities project, and Tamara Fortis, she's a program manager at the UN4UkrainianCities project. The two of you will give us, UNECE, show us how UNECE got involved in planning for reconstruction in the two cities and how the broader UN4UkrainianCities project developed. Melanie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Peter, for the introduction, and also for the whole team and the platform for giving us the opportunity to present our project today. I hope that you can see my screen now with the presentation.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So my part will be very brief. I would just quickly like to give an overview about how the UN4Mykolajiw and UN4Charkiw initiative started and how we got involved in planning for reconstruction in cities. So we, that is the Housing and Land Management Unit at UNECE here in Geneva, and our key areas of work evolve around topics of sustainable urban development, affordable housing, smart cities, and land administration. Yeah, as Peter highlighted already, since April 22, when we received a request from the former Ministry of Communities and Territories Development of Ukraine, we have been supporting the development of urban reconstruction plans for the cities of Charkiw and Mykolajiw. So historically, UNECE has been more working on the national level together with the relevant Ukrainian ministries. But here, after the start of the war, they asked us to focus more on the local level and support the cities directly. As you might know, both Charkiw and Mykolajiw suffered considerably ruination and also destruction as a result of the Russian aggression, but they will tell us themselves later. So they're in need of not only short-term rebuilding measures, but also of longer-term reconstruction and development plans to plan for the future of their cities. So shortly after the start of the war, we established the UN4Charkiw and UN4Mykolajiw task forces, which comprised more than 16 UN agencies and also other international organizations. And with that, we wanted to bring everybody to one table and also discuss how we can best support the cities and coordinate activities. Yes, here you can also see pictures of both cities. On the left, you have Charkiw, on the right, you have Mykolajiw. And then we were also lucky to receive a lot of pro bono support. So after the mayor of Charkiw, Mr. Terehov, reached out to the architect Norman Foster, which most of you probably know as he designed the Reichstag in Berlin. His foundation, the Norman Foster Foundation, started the work on the master plan of the city of Charkiw. So they established a local group of architects. They worked together with his team on the master plan. And we made sure to establish also close collaboration with other local experts and citizens. Alberto and Diego will also tell you more about that later. And then in parallel, Professor Glaser from the Harvard University and Professor Golding from Oxford provided also expert assistance with developing a new urban economic vision for the city of Charkiw. So as I said, we started in Charkiw, and then since July 22, UNECE is also working to help the city of Mykolajiw. Under our supervision, OneWorks, a planning studio from Milan in Italy, started the work on the master plan, also on a pro bono basis. And for both cities, we organized weekly coordination meetings, engaging the city governments, international and local experts to coordinate and discuss the planning of work. We also organized a series of webinars and trainings that were relevant for the development of the master plans. You can see here a list, and also you can find more information on our website. So this phase I just introduced to you ended middle of last year, and after that we scaled up our work to the much more broader and also much larger UN4UkrainianCities projects, which we are working on now. And my colleague Tamara, who's the project manager, she's sitting right next to me, she will tell you more about it. So I give it over to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So our project's called UN4UkrainianCities. It's funded by BMZ and supported by GIZ. We have 5 components. Component 1 is the support to revisions of national policy framework for housing and urban development. Also, the creation of online toolbox. Component 2 is the economic and demographic assessment in our 2 pilot cities, Mykolajiw and Charkiw. And component 3 being the formulation of pilot projects in these 2 cities. Component 4 is capacity building, and component 5 is the development of an investment tracker. So, Ukraine has over 4.8 million of internal displaced people and more than 160,000 damaged houses in current conflict. Ukraine government is seeking for a long-term and effective solution for housing issues, and to address that in the new housing law. UNC is active and effectively supporting the Ministry of Communities, Territory, and Infrastructure Development in this regard, bringing best practice to be discussed within the working group and promoting the inclusion of the UN Geneva Charter principles. This is in relation to component 1, we have been conducting a series of workshops and public discussions in Ukraine. For instance, in November 20, we had the Committee on Youth and Sports holding a meeting to address their concern in the new housing policy and suggesting the law to adopt a modern, transparent, and open digital approach. And we also had in November 28 a meeting with government associations with over 500 representatives attending, and also requested some changes in the housing law. And some of our representatives in this meeting was the first deputy mayor of Mykolajiw and the deputy mayor of Charkiw. Also, in relation to component 1, we are working since the spring of 2023 with the Ministry of Restoration on urban cadastre. We have been doing, we have created an informal expert group, support group, with the Ukrainian bodies and international experts to exchange knowledge in the area and apply existing foreigner policies into real examples faced by the Ukrainian government. This project is funded by Madrid And in component 2, we have the support from Oxford that my colleague already spoke about, Oxford, Harvard, and Polytechnic of Milan in our pilot cities. As you can see here, we have an initial extract of the general economic assessment of Charkiw, showing a powerful industrial city, a scientific center of the country with extensive transport, industrial trade, and business infrastructure that creates favorable conditions for business development. Component 3 is our pilot projects, and in Charkiw, we are working closely with our partners, Norman Foster Foundation, that will be talking later on more in depth of this subject. We have 3 pilot projects tackling heritage, housing, and science neighborhood. The heritage is architecture and urban planning competition, focus on the new design for the damaged regional administration building in Charkiw Square. The second pilot project is the concept plan for the science neighborhood, which is a full-scale neighborhood plan counting with a riverfront, a transport hub, and historical market transformation. And the last one is in relation with housing, is the retrofit of housing blocks in Certificate neighborhood. Also within this, within Charkiw, we are doing municipal housing in Charkiw, affordable housing models for housing recovery in Ukraine. This project will be implemented by Housing Initiative of Eastern Europe. The goal is to create and prepare Charkiw for adoption a comprehensive and economically sustainable municipal housing policy. Focus will be on municipal rental housing program, capacity building, and dialogue between investors for future project implementation. In Mykolajiw, we have the concept master plan created and implemented by our partners, One Works Foundation, focus on 6 main strategies. And we also have a pilot project, which is an innovation district, a concept for innovation district that will address how land uses are organized, clustering, how places are created, placemaking, how green spaces are incorporated, environment, and how accessibility and mobility are strengthened, connectivity. Our colleagues will talk more after us. On component 4, we have capacity building. We have already done a couple of them in Helsinki for shelter infrastructure. We had a workshop with the city's representatives, while in Madrid, we had focus on urban cadastre with representatives from the government and also from the cities. We have planned in March housing workshops in Finland and Germany, and in April, more towards transport in the Netherlands. And our last component is the investment tracker, which will be a GIS-based tool that will be populated with project details, enabling donors to access all information required in facilitating funding selections. Prototype will be launched in June 2024, counting with projects from our pilot cities, Charkiw, Mykolajiw, Irpin, and Boryanka. You can find more information of our projects in our website, UN4UkrainianCities.org, and in our social media platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tamara and Melanie, for this presentation and how to give us an understanding how the 2 initiatives and the UN4UkrainianCities project started. I'm now handing over to Alberto Sendoya and Diego Lopez Urucci. Both of them are architects at the Architecture, Design and Technology Unit of the Norman Foster Foundation in Spain, and also to Francesca Pintus. She's an associate director, the associate director at One Works in Italy. The 3 of them will now provide us with a deeper insight into the development and implementation of the master plan vision. We're getting closer to the issue and to the practicalities, and show us also about the pilot project's approach. Over to you, I guess, Alberto, first in the row.
Thank you, Peter, for the kind introduction. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the Norman Foster Foundation, together with my colleague Diego, and it's also great to see so many friends online. And of course, thank you to BMZ and the German Ministry and UNECE for all the support in this project. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I hope you can see my first slide that says
Yes.
Charkiw Master Plan.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be sharing specifically the scope that we're going to be developing as part of the Charkiw Master Plan in 2024, but also to give a bit of context, we're going to be sharing part of a summary of the vision that we've together developed in this year and a half, more or less, that Melanie and Tamara were speaking about. So this is the city of Charkiw. As you probably know, it's the second largest city in Ukraine with around 1.5 million inhabitants. This is a picture of the beautiful city center. And more importantly, it's one of the hearts of industry, of culture, of university in Ukraine. And because of the proximity to Russia, just 20 kilometers, it has obviously suffered devastating damages across the city. So during this period between April 2022, when the project started, in the context precisely of the UN in the Forum of Mayors of 2022, Norman was approached by the mayor seeking for help. And in this year and a half, more or less, we have been working pro bono together with many other institutions over plenty of working sessions, public citizens questionnaires, and engagements with professionals from all across disciplines. We've been able to develop the first vision for the master plan that, to put it in the words of the mayor, is actually seeing this as not just a typical reconstruction of a city, but using this as an opportunity to build back better, which is obviously one of these approaches that the UN and the rest of the team are promoting. So we're obviously very grateful because from December 2023, we're going to be able to implement part of these projects into reality, thanks to BMZ. So obviously, we are the Norman Foster Foundation based in Madrid, but we are just the tip of the iceberg of all the individuals that have made it possible to reach this vision. So obviously, we've been working with the Charkiw City Council since day one. Olga is here. She's going to tell you probably more about that. Obviously, under the coordination of UNECE, ARUP, precisely the office in Berlin, actually, which is probably very close to many of you as well, have been providing all the engineering disciplines that have been needed. But at the same time, we've been engaging with the Charkiw Architects Group for over a year in weekly sessions, a group of around 10 architects and urban planners, without whom it would have been impossible. It would have been impossible for us to do the work that we have been able to undertake. So we've shared the vision many times across the past year and a half. Hopefully, you guys have been also part of these sessions. But just to extract the key point, or the key point of this vision strategy that we're not going to go dive into, it's this pilot project approach that we were mentioning before. So after all the analysis of the damages in Charkiw, the citizens questionnaire, and even the previous 2019 master plan, we kind of realized that instead of pursuing a traditional top-down approach of a master plan with regulations, it is actually much more effective to pursue a pilot project approach with specific sites in the city, to work on topics that are hugely relevant for the citizens. And this, as a matter of fact, has very tangible benefits. You create real projects that can be delivered to citizens in topics as important as housing. But at the same time, you're pursuing a learning by doing approach in which you're assessing all the regulations that are currently ruling and planning the cities in Ukraine. So it's a way of actually learning what's working well, what's not working well. And in the process, we're obviously engaging with locals on a project development level. And this is a great tool to actually link locals and internationals at a very in-depth level of projects to actually ensure that they are the ones that are rebuilding the city, and that we are there as enablers to actually help them do so. So a drawing summarizing the scope of the master plan vision that we were mentioning, we're going to be working in 5 pilot projects, like Tamara was saying: heritage, rivers, industry, housing, and a new science neighborhood, which are site-specific projects. This is the city of Charkiw, with the 2 rivers, Charkiw and Lopan, intersecting in the city center. But at the same time, we're going to be working in 5 citywide strategies that are crucial in order to ensure that all the benefits of these pilot projects actually get extrapolated to the rest of the city. So obviously, we have to start focusing on a few for this following phase of the project, the ones funded by BMZ. And for that, we're going to start with 3 projects: heritage, housing, and science neighborhood, and 1 citywide strategy, which is the economical one. So starting with heritage, as it was also mentioned by Tamara, The ambition of this project is to actually organize an international competition following the success of the Berlin Reichstag that Norman Foster and his studio won as a refurbishment, and to actually use this as a seed to revitalize the city center of Kharkiv, to actually make it livelier, more pedestrian friendly, and more sustainable. So we're seeing a picture of Freedom Square. This is the heart of the city. It's actually the largest square in Europe, as you probably know as well. And many of the most important buildings are located in this area, as well as university buildings. And precisely in the center of this square, in one of the sites, there's the regional administration building that we also, the damage that it suffered during the first part of the war. So during our first conversations with the mayor, he mentioned how he admired how Berlin and Germany in particular were able to recover the Reichstag, to not forget about the past, what happened, but at the same time to look optimistically to a bright future. So learning from that example, we're going to be selecting this regional administration building, organizing an international competition for architects, for designers, for engineers to actually recover and propose a new regional administration building. It's not just about the building, it's about the entire city center of Kharkiv. So part of that competition will be working on the public spaces around the regional administration building. Together with the city's Department of Architecture and the local architects team, we've selected the site for the competition, which will aim at revitalizing Freedom Square, and also to take these benefits through Sumska Street, which is the artery right in the city center. And the regional administration lies precisely in the intersection of both. The timeline for the project is approximately this one. We're hoping to send out the call for proposals and launch the competition in July, right before the summer. And we hope to have a final selected winner for December. And obviously this will mean a very big engagement and assessment of damages of the regional administration building, as well as the surrounding area. So this is the first project we're going to focus on for 2024. The second project we're going to be focusing on is precisely housing, which is probably the most important topic for citizens. We're currently seeing how winter is actually a big threat for citizens. And precisely because of this, we're hoping to retrofit all the existing buildings that look kind of like this, unfortunately, because of the war. Typical high density concrete panel blocks. And the idea is to actually retrofit these instead of destroy and rebuilding them. They're not very well insulated building blocks. They're lacking good livability. So the idea is to actually recycle the rubble and to actually turn these housing blocks and neighborhoods into lively, energy efficient, without actually losing the identity, learning from past mistakes like the ones that were actually implemented in Syria. So in order to develop this project, we started looking into the housing stocks in Kharkiv, and we obviously realized that 80% of citizens approximately are living in these types of apartment blocks in the city, and obviously 10% in single-family homes and mixed-use apartments. But it is the biggest bulk of the residential area that we're going to be focusing on, which is obviously not something only for Kharkiv, but also a huge issue for the rest of Ukraine. So as we were mentioning, the idea is there's a lot of rubble in the city. This rubble, with the workshops that we also had with the UN, we learned that it's actually not very efficient in terms of sustainability nor cost to take this rubble somewhere else. So the idea is to retrofit an existing factory of one of the many in Kharkiv to create a series of modular components that then can get to retrofit the existing blocks, improving insulation, energy generation, and also in sometimes livability and safety, including war shelters for citizens. So together with the city, we have also selected a site for this, which is obviously the neighborhood of Saltivka, the most populated and the most damaged because of its proximity to Russia. And specifically, we're selecting the northern part of Saltivka following a very thorough local assessment where this picture was taken. You probably have seen this picture. It's just around 20 kilometers away from Russia. So there's been a very thorough analysis of the existing building blocks in this neighborhood, the level of damage, the degree to which these buildings have been already repaired or not. And we have already selected a first site for the competition that will be intervening not just the building blocks, but also the urban design. The idea is to create a local and international competition for this project as well. We want to gather the best ideas in the world to retrofit housing blocks like others in the foundation network, like Lacatan and Vassal have done in the past. But at the same time, we want to ensure that these great international ideas are locally rooted and that they are actually getting implemented by locals in the city. So we're currently designing the competition to actually ensure that this balance between international ideas and local rootings is a success. Because of next year's winter, we will actually be focusing on doing a more compressed competition. We're hoping to launch this one in May to get the ideas by the end of September, and hopefully some can start to get implemented by the end of the year. And the third pilot project we're going to be working on here at the Norman Foster Foundation together with the partners is this science neighborhood, which is located right in the city center. One of the ideas is to actually compact the density in Kharkiv in order to expand it to create a more dense and sustainable city. And the science neighborhood is actually the link between most of the pilot projects and is in a density void of the city linked to the metro. So the idea is to actually work in this area, which is the Baravashova market site, also the largest in Europe at 60 hectares, because precisely of the Russian demand that was driving the size of this market up. So the market has obviously been heavily damaged because of the war, but the structures there are quite inappropriate as well, according to local regulations as well. And obviously the Russian demand is no longer there. So the idea is to look into the future, into a bright future for Kharkiv, in which innovation is at the core of the city's economy, not just industry and selling things in the market. So this is why the mayor was asking us for a new science park, which actually became the science neighborhood in order to not just get the benefits of science parks, which are economic development and innovation generation, but also those of dense neighborhoods that are linked to the rest of the city. So this is the site for the science neighborhood. There's obviously many things happening in this site. We've started the analysis of the empty areas in the site, how the market is actually taking those 60 hectares, and what are the links to local transport networks to ensure that the benefits of these neighborhood are actually extrapolated to the rest of the city. So a very big plot of land that we're starting to analyze currently. And obviously there's many things that we can do here and that we're thinking, like Tamara, for example, a maybe mid-density riverfront development that's more residentially oriented to actually use better the rivers in Kharkiv, which are currently underused as pedestrian and cycling mobility corridors. At the same time, a higher density transport-oriented development in the metro area that also includes some research and university buildings that have been destroyed, unfortunately, in Kharkiv, and to actually generate spaces where all these actors can interact one with the other to actually generate the innovation that Kharkiv needs. And lastly, a new market. We're keeping the market inside on a compact and redesigned version. This is obviously something that's very important for locals. So we're seeing this as a 3-scale approach of working in a few topics like the interface and overall planning of the entire site, working in a phase 1 of district of 1 million square meters. Obviously, we don't want to over-dimension this, so we're currently working with locals and international experts as well to assess the exact dimensions that this project should have following local demand. And lastly, going down to 3 buildings that we're going to be designing this year to actually ensure that the structural, environmental, and bomb shelter and facade concepts are very well done. So this is more or less a diagram of what we're envisioning and some visualizations of how we envision this dense neighborhood following sustainable approaches in Europe to be implemented. I'm not going to run through the entire timeline. I think I'm actually using more minutes than I should, so just we'll have many of the year to discuss this. And lastly, the economic strategy, which will be led by Ed Glazer from Harvard and Ian Golding from Oxford, taking the paper that they already wrote, this 34-page, and actually going down into specific policies, working with locals that can make this a bright economic future for Kharkiv. So again, these 4 activities that we'll be undertaking for 2024, and a great picture of the beautiful city of Kharkiv, which we hope to revitalize in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alberto. I hand over directly to, I guess, Diego next in the row.
Thank you. I don't think I have much more to add, so maybe we can then go directly to Francesca now.
Okay, here we go. Francesca, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today. Similarly to what Alberto did.
Excuse me, Francesca.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I would start first, and I would maybe provide some context to our participants, and then you will tell more about
Sure, go
our
ahead.
particular job, technical job. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I don't know who's supposed to launch the presentation, but please go on. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Greetings. I'm Dmitro Falco, Secretary or Chairman of Mykolajiw City Council. First of all, let me thank all of you for your support. I'm sure that in this meeting, there is no person indifferent to the situation in Ukraine, and we feel your support. We actually very appreciate this. Thank you very much for this. And thank you for supporting also our cities, which suffered, I guess, the most from the shelling, from the ingenious bombing and bombardment from Russian troops. So I would just bring you some context and some figures about Mykolajiw, and then Francesca will make a presentation about our particular work for new master plan of the city. So next, please. You can see on the map that Mykolajiw is situated on the south of Ukraine. It was in very close proximity of the front line. Actually, some of fights took place on the outskirts of the city until November 2022, and then Russian troops, they were thrown beside the river Dnieper, and Kherson was liberated. But until then, Mykolajiw was more than for 150 days constant insidious shelling. So what should we say that next slide, please. Yes, here's some figures and information about the city. Mykolajiw was founded in 1789, so it's quite young city. It was founded as shipbuilding and naval. Actually, the most of its development took place during Soviet period. Few modern shipbuilding yards and also alumina plant, for example, were built during period of Soviet Union. So as our mayor likes to say that everything, the best things about Mykolajiw were happened during Soviet period. But until the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was no demand for the military shipbuilding, which was developed significantly in Mykolajiw. And for this reason, we experienced decline of the economy of the city since 1990, let's say, until the middle of 2000s. Then Mykolajiw started the development as a city of port, and our volumes of transshipment increased every year. And actually, prior to invasion of Russian troops, 23% of all the seagoing cargoes were handled in Mykolajiw ports. So prior the invasion, population was about 470,000 people, and just after invasion, about half of population fled to cities in western part of Ukraine or to abroad, searching for safety actually. But after liberalization of Kherson, people began to return to the city. Now it almost recovered. It's we estimate it's 447,000 people, and you can see the dynamic on the slide. Yeah. Also, we should say that before the invasion, it was industrial city with main industries like medical engineering and metalworking, food processing, and so on. But unfortunately, now all the big enterprises are idle and they don't actually not operating right now. So also next slide, please. Yes. So here you can see that our key emergency challenges for the city, one of them, the most probably, is providing our citizens with drinkable water, because we used to get water from Kherson region by the pipeline, 73 kilometers length, and it was exploded on the 10th of April. And since then, we're supposed to bring salty seawater to our Mykolajiw water canal system, and now we have kind of seawater in our faucets, so no need to go to the seaside for summer vacation. We have it just in our bathrooms. But to resolve the problem, right now we have like 160 distribution points where our citizens can get fresh water for their consumption, for cooking and for drinking matters. But this technical water in the pipelines, they can use for laundry, for example, or showering and something like this. Another huge problem was heating of the city. And another one problem actually was providing electricity. Actually, our municipal administration, we are not in charge for providing electricity, but right now we are working also on a project for our electrical stability and constantness, probably, yes. Thank you. Next slide, please. International aid monitoring. Yes, for right now it's very important and very key issue for us that you know that we get a lot of humanitarian aid to our city, and for just, let's say, not to lose anything and not to let anything be lost, let's say so. We provided a headquarters for coordination of all aid entering the city. The main principle in cooperation with the international organization is transparency of the use of international humanitarian aid. And this transparency makes development more effective and lead to better predictability, coordination, and accountability. For this reason, in the framework of EU anti-corruption initiative, the procedure for exercising internal control over the receipt, distribution, accounting, use of humanitarian and charitable aid received by Mykolajiw City Council was developed and approved. So the main duties of the headquarters are the following: analysis of consolidating information on the receipt and use of humanitarian and charitable aid, reporting to donors about the use of humanitarian and charitable aid, and also informing the population of Mykolajiw about the use of this assistance we receive. Next slide, please. Here you just, no, previous slide, I apologize. Yes, so here are, you can see figures of received international aid. For example, we get more than 3 million kilograms of food, 1,000 sets of food products, generators, units of computer equipment, more than 20,000 pieces of equipment, pumps, osmotic, by the way, osmotic systems to provide clear water to our citizens, units of construction, more than 100 vehicles for our communal enterprises. And a huge aid were also received in restoration of social objects, like shelters and school and kindergartens, schools, restorations of hostel for internally displaced person, etc. Next slide, please. So about our cooperation with UNECE and UN4UkrainianCities, best urban planning and urban practices will be needed for the city revival and prosperity in new conditions of existence. So Mykolaiv was chosen as one of the pilot cities selected by UNECE in order to develop master plan for city recovery under the United Nations for Mykolaiv initiative. City Council and Mayor of Mykolaiv signed a memorandum of understanding with Italian company UN4UkrainianCities, appointing the studio to be the lead designers of the new master plan. Because of the fruitful cooperation between representatives of technical team of City Council and UN4UkrainianCities, we finished the first stage of development of the city master plan, a preliminary assessment of the city, and started the second stage of the development of the city master plan. Also Danish company COVID on this stage joined to us, joined to this work, and they are responsible for development of 3 sectors: water supply, waste management, and energy management as well. Collaboration with the UN4UkrainianCities, COVID, and UNECE is very important for our city, as we have a unique opportunity to recover Mykolaiv using the best world practices and using the principle of building back better. We very appreciate GIZ for support to this initiative and for providing your aid. And we also thank you very much for your understanding of the importance of this work for our city. Next slide, please. To initiate the successful implementation of the master plan, 5 pilot project themes have been identified. They are the following: housing micro-district, industry and trade, innovation district, where we already made significant progress, green and public spaces, culture and heritage. Next slide, please. We also prepared a draft of strategy of Mykolaiv city until 2027 with the help of UNDP. I would like to focus in talking to you about the activities of the local working group. The local working group was established in May of this year. It has many members of different sectors of the city of Mykolaiv. Through the workshops that have been implemented in the discussion that we have taken place, have allowed us to shape the vision for the city of Mykolaiv. The main strategic goals of the city are the following: security and resilience, comfort, competitiveness, and partnership. Next slide, please. Among the... Yes, next, please. Oh, probably one is missing. Well, I hope that Francesca will add more about our... I'm sure she will tell more about our cooperation and what is our progress in developing our master plan. Thank you very much for your attention, and once again, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Dmitry. We haven't had the opportunity to introduce you. You're the chairman of the Mykolaiv City Council. You were a bit quick in jumping in, and but as we said, you're now handing back. We're now handing back to Francesca to look at the project framework a little bit, and then afterwards we will go back to Charkiw, the case of Charkiw. So, but now please, Francesca, please fill in from the project perspective.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dimitro, for your introduction.
Dimitro.
I think it was useful to hear an introduction in terms of what Charkiw is and what it's facing right now. I'll put my screen full on. Let me know if you can see it. Okay, so as Dimitru said, we've put together a multidisciplinary task force because we believe that such a complex reality really needs a varied and multifaceted expertise. So together with us, we have COE engineers, Systematica experts in transportation, land experts in landscape design, and several academic experts that are helping us develop all the collateral subjects that are really useful and crucial for a development of a sustainable strategy for the city. So as Dimitri already mentioned, there is a local working group that has been working for over a year on trying to establishing a development strategy in the short term. And we've been part of these conversations, and for us, it was really useful to try and understand what are the immediate needs for the city and also what we could learn in order to establish long-term principles as well. What really stuck to us was this quote, actually from Dimitri, which really let us understand that the industrial DNA of the city is something that we really have to take into account. Of course, it's an opportunity for the city, but as all industrial cities, Mykolaiv is facing some downsides that are typical of industrial cities all over the world in terms of living quality for its citizens. So that's something that we keep in our mind as we move forward. So in terms of the original survey that was developed, we had an overwhelming response from the local population, which was really great for us because it really means that local citizens really care about the future of the city. And the four main subjects that came out of this survey were enhancing the water and energy system, as already mentioned by Dimitros, ensuring safety and accessibility throughout the city, which is quite crucial, housing and road reconstruction, and in general, enhancing job opportunities. And then moving down to the most recent local strategy, we try to extrapolate the main themes that have the most immediate effect on what we are doing in terms of designing and putting together a strategy. As you can see, there were several themes that are crucial and that we'll be developing together with our experts. The first being the development of a transport network, as so far the city being industrial has been catering mainly for freight. So very efficient in terms of shipping and getting freights into the ports. However, that has some downsides for local transport system and connectivity, especially in terms of walkability. The other theme, of course, is reconstruction and provision of housing. As we saw also for Charkiw, there is a huge amount of housing stock, especially coming from the Soviet era, that is in really, really bad shape at the moment. So that's definitely an opportunity to experiment and do something better with it. And again, similarly to Charkiw, the other main theme is the valorization of the riverfront, which so far has been pretty much always dedicated to the industry. It's privatized, and there is no possibility at the moment for the local citizens to enjoy and socialize along the riverfront. So definitely something we need to look at. And last but not least, the aspiration of local citizens are also to develop and enhance a tourism and heritage valorization strategy, together with the provision of extra sport, culture, and leisure facilities, which at the moment seem to be lacking in Mykolaiv. At the same time, we started to run overarching analysis of the city, even going beyond the conflict issues and effects. So even before the conflict, there were some interesting points that caught our attention. One of these being what I have here on the screen. So the accessibility for people who work to public transport, which is quite low in terms of having close and convenient transport stops close by within a 5-minute radius. The second thing we looked at is the walkability index. So how easy it is for people to move around the city on foot. What you see in blue here is the city center, which is a dense and historical core of the city where walkability is quite high. But as you can see, along the river and in the rest of the city, the situation at the moment is not great. So definitely something that we can, together with our team, look at and improve moving forward. Also because walking was one of the preferred means of transport that came out of our survey. So definitely something that people want to do more in Mykolaiv, and we just need to help them do that. Another point that we looked at was the accessibility to public green areas. So what you see here on the map in white are areas that have an easy access to public green areas, and everything you see in colors does not have access to publicly available areas. So the moment we start to integrate an overarching strategy, definitely one of our targets will be to try and have let's say, an acupuncture approach towards instilling more publicly accessible green areas into the city so that everyone can enjoy them within their local neighborhood. And another analysis that was quite interesting for us was the so-called percolation index that basically let us understand how the permeation rate of the soil is in the city. Because as you know, if there is no water retention measures, the city would be prone to flooding. And actually, a lot of the city has a very low retention rate, which means that it will need de-paving interventions. So something definitely we will be looking at. And last but not least, we started to study also vacant land within the city, most of which is on the periphery of the municipal area, and it's mainly agricultural lands, although there are some brownfields within the built environment and some areas that are already identified as potential development that we would like to consider together with the municipality to see if they can help in achieving our targets. Of course, we couldn't proceed without also doing a thorough damage assessment. The city of Mykolaiv has been very, very proactive in keeping records of the damage in the city. So we had an extensive database to play with. What came out of this analysis was that about 340,000 square meters of land were damaged, and most of this relates to residential land use. It's not a huge amount of square meters, relatively speaking. However, we can understand even from the picture that this is causing a lot of distress to the local population. At the same time, we want to think of this as an opportunity for regeneration and a new future for the city, whereby we use the areas which were heavily influenced and impacted by the conflict to experiment new strategies whereby urban density is enhanced. We create more mixed use, we implement more public transport, overall giving back to the city and installing these triggers for a new way of development for Mykolaiv. As mentioned by Dimitros, we're also, together with the large-scale strategy, we're also looking at a few pilot projects. The first one being the Innovation District, which we have already started to look at. But in general, we are actively looking to with the municipality in order to select the best possible location for these different pilot projects, in order to really, plant seeds for future investments, to put Mykolaiv on the map, and to really test our strategies that we are developing for the large scale, and starting from these pockets in order to really push for better development. Overall, we have established some design principles that are pretty much applicable to all the pilot projects. Of course, we want to integrate with the local context. Despite the difficulties that we're facing, we can't be there with the municipality and local citizens all the time. We've been very proactive in trying always to gather, opinions and valuable information from local expertise, and that's something that we want to keep on doing. As we said, we want to make something valuable and meaningful for the city, so strengthening resilience in terms of economics, environment, and social aspects. And overall, we want to create meaningful pockets for the city, whereby we help Mykolaiv spark innovation and inform further regeneration in the years to come. Over here, we have just a quick snapshot of our work in progress for the Innovation District along the river. So we want to use this to test all our strategies in terms of public transport, mixed use land, property ownership, public realm, access to the riverfront, and all the subjects that we know are really, really important to the local population. So with this, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you very much. If you want to know more, just take a look at OneWorks Foundation, our website that we're starting to populate with information about this specific project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francesca. And like everybody has recognized, we are jumping a bit back and forth over the large map of Ukraine, and we're going back northeast to Charkiw. Should be some 600 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, and have another voice from the practitioner side. We've had the planners. With Mitro, we had the practitioner, and we have another practitioner as well. I hand over to Olga Demyanenko. She's an advisor to the mayor of Charkiw on the international cooperation and senior urban economy consultant for UNECE. And we're back in Charkiw. Practitioner perspective, please. Olga, your turn.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. Dear participants of the meeting today, first of all, of course, I want to thank and express our sincere thanks from the mayor of Charkiw, from all Charkiw citizens for this opportunity to participate here today in the meeting. With the aim to give the information about Ukraine and namely Charkiw city and the situation from the ground and plans for our recovery and current needs, which is very important today. Using this opportunity, of course, first of all, I would like to thank all the partners who are supporting Ukraine today, and especially Charkiw. And of course, especially our very big partner today is the German government, the German people, and of course I saw today the most reliable partner is our Nuremberg city, sister city. I saw Antti Rempe today is participating in this event, and we really appreciate this help, and this is the partner which stands with us in any circumstances from the beginning of the war and till today. I would like to start my little presentation with some figures and general information. So can I just have a next slide, please? Today we heard already about general figures about Charkiw. So the population of the city was before the war 1.5 million. Today we have 1.2 million people staying currently. Among them, it's 500,000 internally displaced people from Charkiw region and other region of Ukraine. The next slide, please. Charkiw is the leading economical, political, social, scientific, and cultural center of Ukraine. The city is constantly developing and modernizing transport infrastructure, new engineering facilities, business centers. All those transformations are doing due to European standards. But of course, unfortunately, the war has made its own adjustments. And for today, we are not only thinking now of the development of the city, but we also need to think about the recovery processes. So next slide, please. Charkiw is unfortunately one of the first cities in Ukraine to come under the total shelling after February 24 2 years ago already, and which continues unfortunately today. And from the last news that you maybe saw that the shellings are ongoing and a lot of people are suffering, a lot of injured people, death unfortunately, and children also. But in the beginning of the war, more than 160,000 people were living in the underground for the first 3 months of the war. So you see these photos is just the living space of the people in the beginning of the war. So when the war, there was the fear of people even going outside, and we had cases where the people were working with a psychologist and they were not seeing any sunshine for more than a month. for today, of course, the city authority, and for that time, the city authorities, together with the volunteers and international partners, were supplying the underground with the humanitarian aid, food, hygiene products, medicines, and other items of urgent needs. There was time when the shillings were ongoing every day for a couple of times in a day. And of course, especially the district Saltivka, North Saltivka, with the population more than 400,000 people. A lot of people from there, especially, were staying in the underground. Next slide, please. So the enemy was standing on the border, just near the city and just near this neighborhood. And that's why, as Alberto already presented today, we are chosen this neighborhood for the pilot project housing, because the enemy were standing just on the border and shelling from all the means of weapons on that special neighborhood, from all the means of weapons they had. And then after they were moved from the city, of course, now the situation is under control, but nevertheless, we had these enormous damages, and which we are working every day. And now we have various projects, initiatives, and plans how to restore Kharkiv and make it even more modern, comfortable, and safe. Next slide, please. I would like to give you now some updated figures on the damages of the city. So the total buildings that we have today damaged is 8,255. Among them is 7,899 housing, 364 educational institutions. It's including the high educational institutions, schools and kindergartens, 88 healthcare institutions, 177 administrative and social infrastructure buildings, 60 cultural buildings, 1,186 other buildings of municipal and critical infrastructure, commercial. Of course, a lot of damages in engineering and critical infrastructure, which we're managing to do every day. And that's not, this sphere could not wait for it to be reconstructed and somehow, because Kharkiv citizens needs the water supply, heating supply every day. Regarding the transportation infrastructure, 60% of the transport fleet, trams, buses, trolley buses, metro carriages, and approximately 30% of all the transport infrastructure are also damaged. Of course, we cannot say that all those damages are enormous. Yes, some of them are totally damaged, but the damages are all in the different scales. And approximately what we have calculated, but these calculations were made the end of summer, autumn time, because now, unfortunately, we're understanding that the figure is raising up. It's 9.5 billion euro for all the needs that today Kharkiv need the financing. So of course, we're all understanding that it's an enormous amount of money that not of any of the budget of any city or the country could just give to one city. So that's why we're very reliable, and we really hope for the support of our international partners in all the recovery processes that today we have. Can I have the next slide? I would just like to say a couple of words about the need in the transportation, because as our very bad experience shows, that when the no transportation in the city, the city became dead. And we had those 3 months of no transport of going around the city. We know what it is, and now we are very actively working on our rolling stock renewal. We had today finished with the European Investment Bank the feasibility study on the transportation damages, especially in the tram infrastructure. And we have those figures today for repairing and renewal of the rolling stocks. We need 19 units. We need the repairs of the rails. It's approximately 45 kilometers. We need the bus rolling stock renewal. We need the traction substation to proceed with the trolley bus operation also. And today, again, thanks to our partner cities, thanks to our partners, we're receiving some used buses every day, and especially the most we received from Nuremberg city and still receiving them. Of course, they are not new, but till we will have the financing, until we are in the process with the big financial institutions in the purchase of the new rolling stock, this helps a lot. Next slide, please. As already my colleagues from NFF, from UNECE mentioned about our big and tremendously important project that we are doing today, and in spite all the horror that the city is going through, and now go in the beginning of the war, and now we are working 24/7 on our recovery processes, and this project with the Norman Foster Foundation and UNECE, and with the support of the German government, this is a tremendously important project, not only in the planning of the city, but in the very in the moral condition of the heart of Kharkiv citizens, that you can feel today that people are not alone there, and not only authorities of the city, but the international community are thinking of them every day and thinking of their future. And that's why we really appreciate the help of German government in this, and we hope that we will have the prolongation of this support, and we will be able to finish all the projects that we are starting now. Today, Alberta mentioned our main pilot projects, and of course, we are now covering the feasibility study of only some of them, the most important ones, yes, such as science, neighborhood, housing, cultural heritage. Also, the economy strategy is super important, because now it is very important to understand the absolutely new approaches in the economy reloadedness of the city. We understand that the neighbor will not go anywhere, and 28 kilometers from the Russian border, we never can change that, unfortunately. And we need now to understand how with this all we can live, develop, and have absolutely the people coming back first, and have this new economy that can give jobs and can help us with the normal life and the creating jobs, first of all. So today we are working a lot in this, and I will not stop more on that, because you heard already about all the pilot projects that we are now doing. Of course, we will need the financing for the implementation of this all planning that we are now doing, and I hope that in the end of 2024, when we will have a very exact conception design, we will do the updatement of the master plan by including those all projects that we are now doing, though these pilot projects. We will seek for the financing for its implementation. Can we have next slide, please? So we are not stopping today, and we cannot wait. And of course, the project with the UN4UkrainianCities is the big perspective project. And all those pilot projects that we are having inside, they are all considering housing. But we cannot wait. The people want to live in Kharkiv. The people want to be back. The people are very tired of being somewhere not home. And that's why we every day seeking for the financing, working with the national government on restoring the housing. So for these 2 years, we have already restored 506 buildings. You can see on the picture how it was before and what it is now. And we have a lot of such buildings, especially on the North Saltivka, in the city center. But of course, the damages are enormous, and the lack of financing is, we feel it every day. So that's why I would just like to shortly consider one of the projects that I would like to say about a few words today. Can I have the next slide, please? We today divided the city damaged neighborhoods into the districts for its more convenient restoration and recovery. And today in the most high damaged district, North Saltivka, as every day we are receiving from the people the request that they would like to come back and to live there, in spite of all the horror. And it's, for some people, it seems ridiculous and weird that how the people would like to live there, where the shillings aren't going, where the very destructive around everything, and but the people won't go home, and we are proud of that, because this is the mentality of Kharkiv residents. They love their city, and they would like to stay there, and that's why I want just to pay your attention to this project. We calculated a small neighborhood, a small district in the neighborhood, it's more rightly to say, and this is located in the North Saltivka. It's called North Saltivka 5. The district is suffered a lot, and it includes residential buildings and social infrastructure, critical infrastructure, security infrastructure.
We can change computers now.
And it includes 20 objects as a whole. So you can see it's like 2 facilities of social infrastructure, 20 objects of residential, of critical, and security infrastructure. The next slide. We calculated how much it could cost, and for today we have there 16 floor houses and 9 floor houses, 5 objects of 16 floor houses and 15 objects of 9 floor houses. Also we have their kindergarten and gymnasium, and when we are now restoring the houses, we always do it in the district way, because we cannot restore one house and on the opposite hand there will be damaged one. So the people want to come back in the normal infrastructure and feel themselves safe. That's why when we are now working with our international partners, we always recover the city and reconstruct the objects in the way all together. So we are taking not only residential, but also the social infrastructure, hospitals, and anything that is there. For example, in this particular district, we calculated that the restoration will be like 2.8 million approximately euro, and for social infrastructure 1 million euro. And for today we already have, for example, in this special district, we have the Red Cross, which are doing already for us all the critical infrastructure, the boiling system, the heating pipes. So in the synergy of different international partners, this project could be very have a great impact for the city and for the people. Also a very important project, next slide please, what I would like to pay attention to is the project on the reconstruction of the thermal plant number 4. This is something that can give to our city a more autonomous usage of the heating supply. And this is it could, like the additional power generation capacity could give the ability to quickly start the turbine for generating electricity. It's also the decentralization of electricity production, what we are lack of now, because if the enemy is chilling on the electricity infrastructure, the whole city can be out in the blackouts, and we know what it is. We had 2 of the blackouts in the city already, and we are now in the process of creating new projects for developing our autonomous usage of the power plants, where we can regenerate the energies, and not only the energy but the electricity. Today we had this great experience, as I mentioned already, with Nuremberg. We had reconstructed with Nuremberg power small boiler house, but it is given the heat supply for more than 100,000 and 1,500 people and residents who are taking this supply from the this boiler house. So we have the experience, we know how to do that. We also now creating absolutely pilot project with the Nuremberg. We created 2 and reconstructed 2 schools with the fully certified shelters, which those shelters are now adopting pupils, and the education process has started just in the beginning of January. And honestly saying, when you see these happy students which are in the school after more than 2 years sitting at home, you can understand that this project is very needable. So okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your time, and I hope for our further cooperation and for the support.
Thank you very much, Olga. Thank you very much to everybody who had contributed here so far. And as everybody can see, we've run out of time quite a little bit, but I'm sure nobody would contradict if I say this was really worth it, having really these fruitful insights and important information about this to show, to understand how important the role of cities is in the sustainable and citizen-oriented reconstruction of Ukraine, the needs and how to understand what mammoth task the local administration is facing to tackle this. So I hope this is fine for everybody, that we took a bit more time, we allowed ourselves to have a bit more time to listening. And we have a couple of minutes left, some 10 minutes for question and answers. And the floor is open.